Hello, this is Gathering in Truth, and I am just about to add Ellie.
Good morning.
Morning, Ellie.
How are you doing today?
Mm-hmm. Much better.
Oh,
I've been
good. I'm
sleeping
glad
a
to hear that.
lot lately.
Yeah, it sounded like you needed rest.
Yeah, yesterday even, I don't know, about 6 o'clock, I started getting like really, really sleepy, and it was short after I ended up going to bed.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah. I think it's interesting how we can be hit with waves of energy and then hit with waves of tiredness, and there becomes
yeah.
an increasing ability to just go with the flow, to not, to be like to not even yeah, to not try to fight that anymore. It's like, well, the body's going through something apparently or whatever, and just kind of, go with it. So, but I'm
Hmm.
glad to hear you're feeling better because I know yeah, when you get hit with that kind of tiredness, it's just the best thing to be able to sleep. So,
Hmm. So how's life on your end over there? How's
good.
it going?
It's going well. Yeah, I'm really enjoying the challenges, both challenges at this point. I was going to ask you because it sounded like you were kind of switching it up the last couple of days. Are you finding a difference with that, or is it still,
I'm finding having the variety feels better,
yeah.
to not be so constricted.
Hmm.
But I still, it's
Yeah.
it's not that, I don't know what it is about that specific practice,
Yeah.
but it's okay. I'm
Yeah, it
still
is.
giving it my best,
I mean,
whatever
you
that
remember
looks
how
like.
much resistance there was for me in the beginning. It was really intense. It really felt like I would never be able to do it, to feel okay about it, let alone
Hmm.
good about it. So I think there's something about it that it's just it is so different from how we're used to being or thinking. And we have used so much energy suppressing our desires without even realizing we're doing that. And that's what's becoming, and that's continuing to become clearer and clearer for me. Like just even in the last day or two, I've noticed that suddenly a desire would surface, and it would be like there would just be this kind of delight, like, oh my gosh, a desire. Like, because in the beginning it was like, I don't even have any desires. I don't even know what that means anymore. There's just like
Yes.
so much that was still such for various reasons, there were still, these unconscious stories about desires aren't okay and they're just going to lead to more pain. And it is dissolving, and I know it is for you as well. Like there's on some levels of your being, you actually are really enjoying this. That's what's interesting.
Yeah.
It's just deepening, and
Yeah.
that's why it's like, I love what you said the other night when you were like, but I'm determined. And it's like, yeah, that determination is coming from that part of you that's like, bro, it's okay. Like, it's all gonna be okay. Like, it's good. It's gonna become so clear, that these desires are just showing you what's already happening, and that it's yeah, that there are no limitations. And I think the other challenge, the unity and oneness challenge, like the fact that I can't remember, did you have resistance toward that in the beginning? Because I
Nope,
did for that as well.
nope. This
It
one
kind
has
of always
tasted like
felt,
this one's been really good right from the beginning. Like it
yeah,
feels, when you see something tastes juicy or meaty or like
yeah,
it's like thirst quenching. I find this
yeah,
challenge. It's my favorite by far. Like if
yeah,
I said I had a favorite, that this would have to be it. And it just came at the most perfect timing after
yes,
that whole dissolving of.
the doer, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I am seeing, I know we've talked about it before, but I am seeing how it is all perfect timing. And the mind couldn't see that in the beginning. Um, but even that intensification of the resistance is really auspicious. It doesn't feel like that when it's happening. It feels like a setback. It really does.
Yeah.
Um, but it really is it really is a sign you're on to something. You're on to something that is going to
Hmm.
um deepen your seeing, and it is because it's because it's a deepening feels still threatening to the mind initially. It feel because it's new,
Yeah.
because it's different, because it's unknown
It's unknown.
territory. Yeah.
It's like functioning in the same but a totally different way, you know? But I think for this challenge, it did bring up like stuff that was already happening. So it
Yes.
just brought a lot more clarity to what was already going on by itself.
Yes.
And the deeper, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's been parts in this challenge where, the mind has had these smaller pockets of
Yeah. Like, what does
like,
this mean?
what is this? Yeah, like that, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
Totally.
it wasn't like a total freak out. It was just
Right.
it felt like a brain twister almost. Like, and you just start
Yeah.
reaching a point where you can't access what that day is through the mind. It's
Yes, exactly.
like, and that was where some of those kind of moments
Yep.
was when the mind really, it was formulated in a way that the mind just can't really go there. And then
Exactly.
it's starting to show us, day by day that I guess how to start living from a place of no mind because you're going through these 30 days of challenges. And at some point, like your brain starts getting like this, I don't even know what this is talking about kind of
Yeah.
feeling, but you know what it's
Yes,
talking about,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And it's getting clearer and clearer. And this challenge is taking us further and further away from being able to access the mind for what we already know.
Yes, that's so well put. Yeah, exactly.
And then
And
it
that's
becomes a knowing, it becomes a lived experience that is a knowing versus a seeing or
yeah.
whatever, right? It becomes, okay, I know what this is because I've experienced this. And it doesn't matter at that point, even if the mind is still going, I don't, but you do.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I find that's what's going on.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's a breaking down of the conceptual model of what it was and feeling like, oh, that yeah, I can kind of hang out here. I understand what formlessness is, but it's like if you stay there, then yeah, it's not actually going to it's not going to create the shift in energy or the shift in identification that's really what's being sought after here.
It's
Yeah,
okay. It's okay if that's, I mean, we all hung out there.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's okay,
It
but
really is. There's just more
it,
of a
it
seeing that
yeah,
there's something here that if I mean talking about desires, like there's something here that really desires to go deeper into truth of seeing it and living it in day-to-day life and in knowing, as you were saying, like knowing that there is only oneness, knowing that there is only one being, here and seeing more and more clearly that that sense of separation was never real. Um and yeah, it's in that desire to see can't be stopped. Like it can't actually um it can't actually do anything but manifest because
yeah.
it's already showing up. Yeah, I've thought about going back and doing the abundance and desire challenge at one point because I have a feeling it would hit totally different because of the
I've
challenges
thought
we've
of
done
that too.
since then. Yeah.
I have, but I'm so excited to get to time
Yeah.
to
I was
see
just looking at that last
what kind
night.
of gifts are on, going to be wrapped up in time. Because, for us in human experience, um, there is, time happening. We're experiencing that, but to fully understand or get a better grasp of what concepts do we have about this time that are
Yeah, isn't it
untrue.
interesting to get to that point where there is an excitement about having more concepts dissolve? It really reminds me of Helen's poem, My Beautiful Destruction, where she talks about that really beautifully, that I'm starting to feel that. Like when I read that poem for the first time, it was like, yeah, I'm looking forward to that happening. Um, but now it's becoming more of a lived experience,
Hmm.
to see that because there's less fear, of the unknown. There's more of a sense of it's not it's not how it appears to the mind. The mind sees it as other, as because it just thinks only in terms of separation. So it's like um it thinks it knows what it is. It thinks it's a body and a self, a separate self, and a, that it's navigating the world by thinking about things and deciding things and um that feels really solid and real until it doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
And then it does start to feel, especially when you start to experience like Helen talks about in the Transcending the Mind book, when you start to have those experiential shifts, where you can tell that that something has been released from the system, that it's like you're saying, when you start to see on that level that's not the mind and then it becomes clear that the more that happens, the better it's going to be.
Hmm.
And there's no real end to that. There's yeah. And that starts to sink in more, I guess, on some level.
Yeah. And I mean, as we've been doing these challenges, like it's so clear now that there is, I don't know, it feels like this has been happening in stages. Sometimes I can kind of see that, but I don't know. It's like things have really kind of their solidity have really started to fall away. You know what I mean? And there were these concepts that were still in some ways still concepts, and that was like, everything was out there, you know, and then it
Yeah.
was in here, and then it was like, there's no out there. Now I get it. You know what I mean? Like I did, like, but it was still somewhat intellectual until it
Yeah.
wasn't anymore. And then to really, really look at what things actually are and how that correlates to beingness and have those labels start to really fall away and lose their grip.
Mm.
Then it goes a little bit deeper of, well, that means like I can't take a step outside of myself or inside of myself. That's what this challenge has really brought up. Like that it's really anchored in the fact that because I could hear it in my language about um, I have nowhere to put my foot, right? And I used to
Mm.
talk about like
Yeah.
where do I put my footing or there is nowhere to put my footing. And then during this challenge one day it just hit me when it started really seeping in that there's no objects. Like those are optical illusions,
Mm.
only visible because of the senses.
Yeah.
Like without these eyes, that plant would not be there. It wouldn't. And not just the eyes, I just mean all of the senses in general. And to realize that, then it changes. Like, but I can't even take a step closer or away from myself. That for me, that I can't even take a step closer or away. Just kind of really anchored in that no inner out there. And before it was just where do I take a step in general, but now it's I can't get any closer or away from myself. It's not possible. And therefore everything, even our desires, because you were talking about that, like any desire that anybody has, it's already there. Like to know
Mm.
that it's not even that's it's not even that it has to, it was never not there.
Yeah. Right.
Like that's why the thought came in the first place of that desire is because it is already here. It's just not visible until it is visible,
Yeah.
right? But there's no borrowing of yourself to create something else. Like there was also something in
Right.
that, like
Yeah.
I can't like extract part of my essence. And not that it was like that, like maybe it was slightly like that before, in thought, but I can't extract some of my essence and create that plant over there. Like it's
Yeah.
not of my essence. It is me. It is,
Right.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And there was
Yeah.
also that language too before, like, but the plant is of my essence. Well, even in that, if I listened closer, it is of my essence. That feels like I'm
Mm.
a part of it, it is me, but it had to extract that to come into life. But
Yeah. Yeah.
for that to
Yeah. And
start
there's,
really falling away, so then
yeah.
that's why I'm interested for the time. Because
Yeah.
if that's how that is, that there's no inside, no outside, I know that fully. That I can't even take a step away from myself and I can't take one step closer to myself, then there is just me. There is no other that is just of the senses
Right.
to go, which is what's already starting to unfold a little bit. Then everything is here, and that's why there's also no time. Because there can't, even though it looks like there's time and distance, and that is also of the senses. That's picked up by the senses without everything that's already here, whether you can see it or not see it, it is already here.
Yeah.
Then what does that mean for time?
Yeah. It really changes everything, doesn't it?
There can't be time. Everything's already here, so we don't have to go anywhere else for it. It's just that it becomes visible at some point, right?
Yeah.
But everything is us. So even that desire, we can't even take one step closer or away from that desire. It's not possible. It's just not possible. Think about that for a second. We have this desire, we want this desire, right? But in reality, we can't take one step closer to that desire or further away from it because it is already here. It's done. It's already done.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why the desire's there because it's already done. It's already here until, and then it becomes visible.
Hmm. And that's why I think it would be interesting to revisit the abundance challenge because I remember really clearly that I had not that was all new at the time. And I remember feeling very perplexed by it, where it was like it was just clear that yeah, that there were these concepts about how reality works, and it was still very rooted in those kind of separation thoughts about um yeah, there actually being like a physical universe, even though it was like, yeah, there was sort of this conceptual understanding that this world isn't as it appears to be, and I'm not actually separate from anything. That's sort of non-duality 101, but it's like you're saying it's a totally different experience when it becomes more experiential, when it becomes more um clear that that the mind, it's like you were saying, I've noticed that as well, that even when the mind does come in and is be like, oh, I don't get this, it's not distressing anymore. It's not like there's no more, it's it's like there's just the mind will kind of present um it's confusion or whatever it is, and it is just seen, but it's not, there's no energy behind, like you're saying, using the mind to try to solve this problem of confusion. Like
Right.
it, at some point it becomes clear that that's just going to lead you deeper into confusion, and it's like lost its momentum. It's lost its momentum to do that. It is just simply the energy has already started to be redirected.
Yeah.
Um, and so that very well-worn groove is uh the energy isn't flowing down those well-worn grooves anymore. And they're starting to dissolve, those
Yeah.
well-worn grooves. So, and yeah, and it creates much more, well, it, yeah, there's just a lot more openness and curiosity then that's abiding, it's becoming more of a new normal, really, to just be excited about uh
Right.
watching more of this unfold.
And then it just kind of sometimes feels like, for me, this is what's kind of been coming out. I told you before I have this childlike mind. You think conscious imagining would be easier. But
Oh, I felt the same thing. I was like, I literally have written a fantasy novel. Like, why can't I imagine something, but it is different when it's,
it is.
yeah.
But I've been seeing like this, like for me, I struggled in school immensely. Even in like special classes for special people. You know what I mean? I still struggled. And there was this feeling. Actually, this has just come through this week as well, so it's kind of working itself out. But there's this feeling of I'm gonna get left behind. That's how I felt at school a lot, like I'm gonna get left behind. There was panic about it,
Yeah.
like I really had to get things. And I guess even as an adult, I've also felt that a lot, like I'm gonna get left behind in one way or another. You know what I mean? And when we were moving through this challenge, um, I started noticing, that the mind, like we said, just is starting to not be able to go there. You're starting to see this definite limit to the mind. Like
Yeah.
you're seeing that limitation, at
Yep.
least I am. I know you are too. But when that started happening, I started seeing that little kid, from school.
Mm,
And I didn't really know that until like just the other day. So that could be explaining some of
mm.
the sleepiness too. Like all of a sudden, this shame and guilt thing just bubbled to the surface. I didn't even know I really struggled with shame and guilt.
We
Of
don't
what?
know until
Like
we
that was
know.
my
Yeah.
first
It's
question. Like
unconscious.
when it came up,
Yeah.
it was like, of what? And there was kind of like even like sort of a defensiveness to that. What is this? Um, so it brought up like this, I'm gonna get left behind, the shame and guilt kind of thing. But it all came up like a little kid, and then I could see like everywhere this was kind of is playing out. And then when the mind started displaying its limitations, it's almost like I saw it as a little kid, like as myself going, I'm getting left behind. I really need to get this because if I don't get this, I'm going to be left behind. Like I'm not good enough to go any further. These are things that I have said, right? Even now with the business, like something came up of um, like there's like this sense of limitation or a little bit of, you know, mixed in with this sense of I can't get any further or, just where that has also been playing out. But all of this I could see all at once, like a book. But
Mm,
it started
yeah.
when I was a kid, right? And then it was like when the mind started having these similar things, it's almost like it brought the mind in like a little kid trying so hard, feeling like it's getting left behind, not wanting to be left behind, it not wanting to be. And I just saw it kind of as a little kid. And then all of a sudden, this compassion kind of poured in. And it was like, it's okay. Like it was really maybe for the first time, okay. Like almost verbally telling the mind, like, it's okay. Like, you're not getting this. Like, you're not getting left behind.
Yeah.
Like, just sit down and I'll take you and we'll go there together and you'll
Mm,
be
I
less
love that.
stressed and you'll be more functional because there won't be so much like just chill like you don't actually for the first time you don't have to get this. It's okay, I got you. Like
Mm,
we're going there together. Like just it's all right. Like
yeah.
we can't
Yeah.
not go here together. You this is your function and you can only go that's this far, but it doesn't make you inadequate. It doesn't make you not important. We still have to do this together. You know what I
And
mean?
isn't
Like
that
and to
so
tell the
different
mind
from,
that it's like
yeah.
it helps it to just chill out and then you just start noticing that it's a lot less active. It's And it
Yeah,
really
because when you're
doesn't
not
have to
resisting,
understand. It really
yeah,
is okay. It can come forward and say that, but it's wrapped in something else, which is you, because it is you. Like even the mind is you, right?
yeah, yeah,
So it's like that's just how I'm showing up. So like that kid that I called I'm, like this little I'm myself. Well, here it is. It's now it's just in mind form. It's like that is part of me. That is a way that is
yeah. It's
showing
not
up.
actually separate.
It's not separate. And then there's this compassion that comes pours through, which is also me. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And it's like it's okay. You start like not really talking to the mind, but I guess on some level that is happening because the mind is settling. So it's just like, dude, it's okay, but we have to go there together because we are together. Like I can't be separate. So
right.
then when it starts chattering and
You don't need to get rid of
you
it.
don't need to get
Exactly.
rid of
Yeah,
it. It's okay. And then it does settle because it realizes it's okay because the story's not being built of, yeah, so that's kind of been unfolding in the last few
mm.
days. So that could explain some of the sleepiness.
Mm. Have you seen the Helen has this on the website on in the extra, I think it's in extra classes and resources. There's a list of just like PDF documents, and one of them, I think you know where that is because I there's a conscious imagining extra teachings on there that you had that I didn't at the beginning, and I
Yeah.
was like, where did you get that? So I think you know what I'm talking about. But there is another document that is something like list of emotions and their stories or something like
Yes,
that.
I have that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have found that really helpful because of like you're talking about when these unconscious emotions surface and it's yeah, to be able to um kind of zero in on the story that it's telling and because that really is where the gold is when it comes to contemplation, to be able to question the actual story because I completely relate to what you're saying about like I didn't even know shame was there. I wasn't aware of it. I didn't know that. And it's like that's what's so I mean it just it's you hear people talking about the unconscious and it's like, oh, all have these unconscious things. There's this unconscious mind and the attention is always on the conscious mind and what thoughts are doing. But yeah, once that starts to shift, then there's capacity for these unconscious things to surface, to be seen. And yeah, it can be,
And how they're still playing out. Like
yes,
I had
well,
no idea when that came to the surface, like shame and guilt, they came together like they were interlocked. And it
yeah,
was like as soon as I saw it bubble to the surface, it was a part of me that was surprised, and another part of me that got defensive. Is like, for
yeah,
what? Like, what do I gotta feel shame for? And I remember
yeah,
saying that question internally, like, this doesn't make any sense. Like,
yeah,
and then it was like from where it started until how it is even playing out subtly now. It was like,
yeah,
what? How did I not? What? How did I not
yeah.
see that? Like, it's been here the whole time. And
Yeah,
yeah,
and
it
that
has been here the whole
defensiveness,
time.
right. Yeah. I mean, it's so good to be able to see it. And that defensiveness is like the residual self-protection. It's like a gatekeeping around the unconscious of like you don't want to that is so uncomfortable for most of us for so much of our lives. That's why it never goes deeper because something happens to trigger that feeling of shame, and that defensiveness instantly comes up of like, I don't need to be ashamed. That doesn't, and that's why but what becomes clearer also is how um Carl Jung has this quote that I've been thinking about all the time because it's starting to become clearer of how it's true and why it's true. He said, it's something like, if we fail to make the unconscious conscious, if you fail to make the unconscious conscious, or until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. And that's what becomes clearer as we deepen, as our awakening deepens, that this seeming outside world is reflecting those stories. That's why the contemplations are so powerful, because as we question those stories, the reflection does change, because the intention is there to see the truth. And that intention, it's like you were saying about desire, like it's already here. It already wants to dissolve. There's already and so then those stories that we seem to have been living as a separate person, that's why the time challenge will be interesting, I think, because this idea of this past person that's lived these experiences, I think that starts to continue to break down. Because, for example, when I had this happen, just like earlier this week, I heard Helen give her definition of grief, like this, when she sat with grief, the story that it told her, and it was something like, I've lost everything. I need to be happy and I can never get it back. Um, and there was like an instant recognition of like, that's what it is. Like, but I think because it was so unconscious, there's been this real sense, even in the last year, really. It's been, even after finding Helen, it's been the most intense. Like,
Yeah.
has become, life became almost unbearable. And there was just such a confusion around this, because it was like, I know I'm awakening. I've known I found my teacher. Like, why don't I feel better? Like, it's like,
And
why is
Helen
it
does say
worse?
it. I've heard her say it
Yeah,
recently in a lot of videos. Like it starts feeling worse, and the things that appear to be on the outside start like really getting worse. Like your
yeah,
situation goes from, you know, feeling like it's a nightmare to holy shit, how can it really get this bad? I thought when it couldn't get any worse, it's gotten worse. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and Helen says
exactly.
that's normal,
Yeah,
that things start going worse
yeah. And it's
for a while.
confusing. It's really confusing to the mind, but it's exactly what we're talking about here. Like, um, as this stuff from the unconscious surfaces, it's surfacing so that it can be seen and dissolved. But until that feels safe to do, until there's a clear enough understanding of what's happening, we feel it more and more. And
We're like the cloth that's getting wrung by our consciousness. We're getting wrung out. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
once the cloth
yeah,
starts drying out like you want it to, like you got to start squeezing it really hard to get the last few drops. And I feel like that's what's going on
you
here.
feel
Like
like you're
because
being squeezed. You
like
feel like
I'm
you're the cloth that's being squeezed.
yeah,
Yeah,
by
for sure.
my own beingness. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah,
like it is drying out. It is drying out all the cloth,
yeah,
the material of what we think things are or how things are be or old patterns, or it really is putting the squeeze on that stuff. And I mean, most change in life is most change in life is uncomfortable. And if you look at most things in life, like crystals or coal or things like that, like in order
Mm,
for them to transform, there has to be a pressure. Even as a
yeah.
bodybuilder back in the day, like
Mm,
those weights are getting heavier and heavier. They're starting to feel like they're crushing you, but you need to push them or you're not going to grow. And in order to push your body to those limits, you got to tear the muscles. You got to tear it all. And man, that that don't feel good. You're walking it around in pain on purpose for
mm,
that doesn't actually go away because as soon as it starts feeling even like it's coming back together, you go back to the gym and you tear it apart again, and this pressure from our own beingness kind of feels like that because it's like the pressure has to be there for something to transform. And it doesn't have
yeah.
to be uncomfortable pressure or pressure that you're not looking for. Maybe sometimes it's not very welcomed, but the more and more conscious you become, the more and more aware you become, that pressure starts to,
Yeah.
in a way, you're looking forward to that pressure because you know what's on the other side of that pressure. Like you
Yeah.
know that what's going on and it's okay, and the mind can settle because it's like even though it's not uncomfortable, it's okay, and you
Yeah.
become
And
okay with being uncomfortable, but in
yeah. Well, that's the
not a
thing
weird
is,
detached way.
yeah, it shifts because initially that suffering is needed um to even disidentify with the separate self. Like it when it's not uncomfortable, it's it's not like as the suffering becomes more, I know in my own experience, like as the suffering became acute, the desire to know the truth and to live as the truth and only that became more and more intense. And at
Yeah.
some point, there is a shift that happens where it really does become clear what spiritual teachers say about suffering being optional, that it really is rooted in the illusion of separation. But until that becomes clear, like we do have all these strategies as human beings to make the suffering bearable, and it is bearable a lot of times for most of us, at least enough to not want to go deeper into the what is very uncomfortable to the mind, this process of dissolving the ego. Yeah, it ends up
And the mirror don't move. Like again, I was at some point standing in front of the mirror, just looking at myself the other day. And there is motion happening here in our beingness. And the mirror doesn't move, you move. Like what's reflecting back cannot move itself. You know, it's not possible for the reflection in the mirror to move. You move, and then the reflection moves. They move together. You know what I mean? But something has to move first in order for that reflection to move. And I think that's where this deeper understanding goes. Because as we go deeper into these pockets of whatever is bubbling to the surface, you know, of our awareness. It's in seeing those things fully and being able to actually look at that reflection, like what is this reflection trying to tell me? And in my case was this guilt and shame, and then there was like, oh, so that's here now. So that's in my reflection. And it's like, well, I don't got nothing to feel guilt and shame about. Like, are you crazy? And then you start getting like these, really? You don't? Like, really? And it's like, okay. And then it gets to like current moments in time where you're still unconsciously creating guilt and shame, but you have to look at the reflection that's showing up, and it's going to show you like, where is this still playing out? Where are you still creating guilt and shame? And it wasn't something that was being done to me.
Mm,
Like when I started seeing current ways that guilt and shame was actually being created by myself, some of it chosen and most of it unchosen, but it was like, oh my gosh, when I did that, I felt guilt and shame. And when I did that, I felt guilt and shame. And oh, yeah, that created guilt and shame. But it's all me. This reflection
yeah,
is me. So, and a lot of that was actually being unconsciously created by me. But if I wouldn't have seen this guilt and shame pop up and I wouldn't have seen all these little pockets, I would have never known that. And now I
right.
can consciously be aware of that.
Yeah, I think that's why Helen is always reminding us that these things have to play out as long as they're believed,
Yeah.
because we are the infinite self. And the abundance that we are and the love that we are, it's always here, but it can't manifest and be reflected in the reflection until these stories that all this energy is tied up in, and the attention returning to it again and again and believing it on some level. Um, as long as that's happening, then we seem to be in this sort of hellish state of living the same experiences over and over again, experiences of rejection, experiences of lack, experiences of separation. I mean, it always ends up being rooted again in separation. But it has these different flavors when it comes to particular emotions that have been repressed into the unconscious. And that's what Jung meant about, until that becomes conscious, you'll keep living it. You will keep
Yeah. It's
living
still
it.
be in that reflection. You can't not be there. If it's there, it's going to reflect it that it's there. And
Yeah.
and it really came into the foreground of the mind when I was standing in front of the mirror, just looking at myself. This was all on the same day. This was just like 2 days ago.
Hmm.
And it was
Yeah,
like,
no wonder you're tired. There's been a
and
lot
there
of
was just
shifting
something about
happening.
this that I was looking at myself in the mirror and I wasn't feeling very good about what I was seeing. And then there was like,
Mm,
but that can't move unless something here moves first, and then we move together. And then it just brought up, the shame and the guilt. And then it did, it brought up like a lot of crying. And it was like, oh my God. And, the seeing of, situations that seem to bring up this guilt and shame, but also situations where I've consciously or unconsciously done something where I've created guilt and shame within me has come forth. It's like just not even feeling guilty about that. Like when you get so far
Right, because
along,
we
like
don't
it's
know.
like that's okay. Like there was no judgment that even how I was even creating it myself currently, there was no judgment in that. It was just like I could see it, and I was glad that I actually really could see it crystal
Yeah.
clear. Like there wasn't like the mind wasn't even going like you see ma, there was none of that. Like it was chilled out, and it was like there was just a being glad that I was actually like really seeing it in its totality, like from
Mm,
childhood till now, how even as an adult it's playing out, and some of it, through action is creating that. But it's creating that not because that situation did that. It's because it's an energy. It's an energy that's in here vibrating. And now
mm.
it's being seen. Like it's coming forth, in a more subtle form, you know, but there was like no punishing of seeing that. It
Yeah.
was like, it's okay that that's there, but now I've seen it. Now I know where it comes from. Now I know what's going on, right? That the next time it plays out, there's no way I cannot know that now. So
Mm.
I'll be aware when it starts poking up, and maybe the same action will be taken, and maybe it won't because it's been really seen. Like, here's guilt and shame. Here's how it's playing out. Some of these behaviors are, you know, keeping that alive.
And
But
believing the story
yeah,
is because like we learned with
and that it's just a vibration. It's not even like, and that's another
yeah,
thing that's been coming through the challenge about this vibration. But in the mirror, it's like it's seen until it's not. But it was always here, right? I didn't see it physically. I can't see it because it's guilt and shame, right? um, until it's not. Well, until it's not would be until all these patterns and stuff stop playing out. You know what I mean? And it's just that particular vibration stops vibrating the way that it does, and it takes another type of vibration. So maybe in that switch up, let's say, it again can't disappear. It's not like it just goes wham and then wham. You know what I mean? There's a flow. So maybe part of that flow is where whether the behavior continues or doesn't continue, that it's either way is okay because it is still fully seen.
yeah, I mean seeing is what it's what
But that seeing will also create like a more appropriate or a less separate self kind of um, solution to happen or an action to be taken. Maybe you would have done this
yeah,
before and then suddenly you've done this. But that comes from the seeing of it, and then something of more
right.
wisdom or grace can pour in there for a different
Yeah,
outcome or for a different reaction, and that's not a doing.
right,
And I think
exactly.
that's
That
where
starts to
this
happen on its own.
certain thing just starts to vibrate differently. And in that vibration, it's kind of like milking over into this new, and this one just falls. It's not even like this happens or this happens. It's more like the,
A higher possibility can manifest
yeah.
when those stories start to dissolve.
And
It
that's
I mean,
because that is also already there. That higher possibility is also
always.
already there. So if we're
Yeah.
feeling shame and guilt, you know, the possibility of that guilt, guilt and shame to dissolve, it's not dissolving and being disappeared. It's dissolving into that higher frequency that's already there
Mm.
around it. You know what I mean? Like they're one.
Yeah, and from the
There's no doing,
perspective,
it's just a movement.
yeah, it's I mean, doing is what the mind believes is happening, but it becomes clearer and clearer um that things are just happening on their own based on intention,
Yeah,
and that's really, and it's the intention of of the self, that and it's only this believing in illusion, the attention returning again and again.
yeah,
And that's also not a doing. And that's why, as that becomes clear, there's the story of guilt and shame and all of that does have to break down. And then even the sense of like, why didn't I see this before? Or when there's a realization of like, well, this whole pattern for this entire lived experience has played out again and again because of this story that I was believing. Um, but it's only a belief in a separate self that would feel guilt then at that point of like, well, why?
yeah,
And I remember having that surface as these teachings first started to penetrate. There was this, because there was already um, a sense of being a failure that had kept playing out. And so when it was like, what, it's my fault that this is happening, it just was like, but that just had to be seen as well, that that was
yeah.
just the mind's reaction, and
Like
now it
I
doesn't
wouldn't
happen
openly
anymore.
choose that or do that, but yeah,
It's the deepest desire keeps surfacing again and again of just wanting to see the truth, whatever its implications, and whatever it disrupts, whatever it dissolves. There's just an openness to that and of course that starts to feel safer and safer as we become more and more rooted in the realization of I am not a phenomenon and no phenomenon can affect me. I am this formless awareness that is everywhere. And this is all just being seen. It's not actually affecting me. I'm not actually involved in that, in the sense of the absolute. And that's what allows the experience to shift into something that feels better, because it just becomes clearer and clearer that the stories are not true and were never true.
yeah.
And it's like we learned in the dissolving the doer challenge, it does happen on its own, and there is a relief in that of yeah, I don't have to work hard to change any of this. It's clearly already unfolding on its own, and it is just a clearer and clearer seeing of what this actually is and what's actually, I'm not trapped in this separate self that's cut off from
This is
everything.
not a hopeless situation.
Yeah, it really feels that way for a time. But it's clear that it's already changing, it's already shifting. Um, and all that's actually changing and shifting is this experience
Yeah.
of it. It's every time we do self-inquiry and see what we really are, the spaciousness and the stillness that isn't moving or changing, doesn't have any limitations, it's the stories dissolve more and more. It is fascinating how compelling they are. It just there's just so much momentum to those mental energies, it's
Yeah.
but again, it just each time it like as we have clearer seeings, that feels more and more uncomfortable. It's like yeah, I don't know. It's at some point at some point there's a shift that happens where yeah, I was thinking about this morning actually, that I was remembering that there was a time not that long ago when I would hear spiritual teachers say, this spacious awareness, this peace is what is always here. It never goes anywhere. And because I had been experiencing so much misery and despair for what had seemed like such a long time, that did not seem true. And when I would be in the midst um of the experience of feeling, such intense aloneness, such intense hopelessness um and misery and wretchedness, it was just like that's what felt real. And I wanted it to be true that peace was always there, but I was just um it felt like it just didn't feel like it was here, and that started shifting gradually at first, and there would be moments of, in the midst of some kind of intense emotional outburst, or just that feeling of just completely falling apart and not being able to stop crying, or it would, like, even in the midst of that and the mind going absolutely crazy, there would be moments of um almost like if the sky was full of these stormy clouds, and all of a sudden there's just like a break in the clouds and the sun comes through very, very clearly. And so there started to be a sense of like, no, it is here. And then there'd be a noticing of, like, even in the midst, like I'd be like curled up on my bed, just feeling completely agitated, crying, sometimes yelling, like yelling at, like, what, like just like expressing it out loud, like I hate this so much. I don't even want to, I can't even live anymore. I just don't even want to live anymore. This never ends. And even in the midst of that, there would just be like a sudden noticing that the body wasn't really agitating. There was just still a feeling of like it was all the mind, basically. I could see that. I could see that. Because I would be saying, like, I feel so miserable. I feel so miserable. And then there'd be a sudden noticing of, like, well, the body is not in any pain. The body feels quite peaceful right now. Um, and it was like, so what is this? It was more and more clear that it was just the mind, and it wasn't even affecting the body in the way that it was had, what the mind was saying. It's like, well, what is feeling miserable then? What is this? If it's not every part of me, then what is it? And so this morning I was thinking about how it is more clear now that the peace is what is always here, the spaciousness, the presence. And when something arises, it's seen as a movement, it's here and then it's not here, or it transforms into something else.
Mhm.
And yeah, that changes the experience of having something surface because there's not that strong identification with it. It still might be very unpleasant,
Yeah,
but it's not, it doesn't, there's less and less of a sense of this is happening to me or this is what I am.
yeah, yeah. There's way more capacity even to be with that uncomfortableness and even
Yes.
to know that it's okay. It's okay to be in that uncomfortableness. That's all that it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not me. It's not happening to me. It's just very uncomfortable. But when I look, really look into it,
Yeah, for
that's a different
sure.
experience.
And I know that I know the catalyst for that, I've seen it happen a few different times where there was something surfacing that felt completely unbearable for years that kept being lived, and it really felt like there was no end in sight. But there is something really powerful about times that we've been able to sit together when I was in the thick of that. And um, what felt impossible to do as a separate body mind, there was some capacity to go there
Yeah,
because the resistance was still there, but I was sitting there with you, so I couldn't just go do something to distract myself or
yeah,
whatever it's been that's perpetuating that over time. It was and having you being there, not judging, still being coming, like still holding that frequency of peace and acceptance. It it didn't always happen like in the moment, like the shift in energy. I might still get off that call, feel like sometimes it would. Sometimes I was like, I can tell I feel better, but there might still be uh yeah, some residual sense of like that heavy energy or whatever. But then over the next couple of days, there'd be a seeing of like, um, yeah, no, I really feel better.
yeah,
Like something has actually shifted. And over time, there's even been a sense of like that, it doesn't have to be like that anymore. Like that something
yeah,
has actually been transcended here. And as long as the story was being believed of because shame has been a big one for me as well. And for me, the story that shame was telling is um something like something like I there was something that just wanted to hide, something that felt very unlovable, very unloved and unlovable. And um for many years there was like a safety in being alone, but then at some
mhm,
point that aloneness
yeah,
started to feel more and um more and more it didn't feel good anymore. It felt really bad. It felt like separation. It felt like the actual feeling of of being cut off from everything, from everyone, of and Helen talks about how when we feel bad, really, really bad, that our body is a truth meter, that
Yeah.
we feel so bad because it isn't true. Like at the time, it's like it it feels like I feel so bad because all of this is true, like that I am unfit to be around other people, that I'm not capable of it, that I'm cut off permanently and forever. There's a gap here that cannot be bridged. But it actually feels so bad because it's not true, because
Yeah.
the body is just like um screaming that out, that and once we get to that point where the energy is starting to shift and being released, then resting in that knowing that the separation was never real, that we're not just connected to everything, we are everything. And
Yeah.
um
And that we have the capacity. It's not like we just grew this capacity all of a sudden. The more and more we became aware of our true self. No, this capacity has always been here to be able to be with something very difficult, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or whatever. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like we are that capacity. It's just
indeed.
it's just having the willingness to turn and face whatever is coming up and to like really be with it, but to know that it's not that your capacity has grown. You are this capacity to be with whatever. We really are not given anything we can't handle. Like we really aren't. There's nothing that our beingness cannot handle. It can handle it all
Right.
because it's all showing up. It's all here.
That's what started to become more clear. That's one of the things that actually made it possible, I think, for because that story because that was a story that was told again and again, is this is just unbearable. It's
Mhm.
unbearable. I can't stand it. I can't handle it. And as there was more and more um self-inquiry and seeing the awareness that's always here, that's what became more and more clear of like, and even when I was like, there was all these, this, even when there was a feeling of total separation, there was this deepening realization um, that was happening in this larger spaciousness, and yeah, there was never any actual aloneness. There was just the experience of that, the belief that that's what was happening. Um, but 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 there is no actual separation. There was always this spaciousness and this presence that was here with it. I mean, that's why we can even remember it happening, is because something was aware that it was happening and was not affected by it and was just watching it and witnessing it. Um, but it is amazing how real it feels, that feeling of separation, how real it feels. Until it doesn't anymore, until it starts to shift.
And it's in the looking, it's in the willingness to be willing to just really look at what is here, what is showing up, what is being said, what is being done, to just look at it with
Mm,
compassion, without judgment, just to be willing to look at it. And when you're willing to look at it, it may feel like each time that you're willing to sit with something uncomfortable, whether it's small or large, that in that willingness, something is going to change. There is going to be a shift there. You know what I mean? But it's not that you have more capacity, which is how it feels. Like I have more
right.
capacity with each time that there's this willingness to be with something. but that I am this capacity. Like I am this big, vast no thingness and this big bad thingness that is here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
is
it's seen with
is
love,
in
right?
my
Yeah.
capacity. It is the capacity. Like the two of them are one of in the same. Like for however big this is, feels, or looks, the beingness that you are is equally that bigness that you feel and see that is here but is unseen. It is that capacity. You know, whatever charge that this has, the charge of your beingness can match that and more so. You know what I mean? Like they're not separate. It's like the tornado in the eye of the tornado. You know what I mean? Just to just be able to be with
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
in
you
its
can sit there
fullest.
in the eye of the tornado and everything might be look like total chaos and destruction, but there's a knowing that yeah, that it's not what it appears to be. It's not what the
Mm,
body and mind is perceiving it to be. And that's why it becomes I mean that's why like as a teacher like Helen can sit with someone who might be completely falling apart emotionally. Like we've seen that in various songs. When someone comes with with being in a place of total grief, total confusion and emotional upheaval. And she can meet that with total compassion. Um, and you can see the shift happen for that person, even in the midst of what they're experiencing. That's something that can be transmitted as like this feels like all that exists right now. It feels completely contracted and like this is it. This is like this
yeah.
feel this horrible fear, whatever it is. Like um some of these feelings that we experience as human beings can just be um so intense, so acute, but it never is the whole story. And as awakening deepens, that becomes more and more clear, and the capacity to be with whatever arises here, whatever arises anywhere else, it can um yeah, it can be the capacity is there to just be with it. And there is no more capacity to reject anything that arises or to want to push it away. Especially as there is a deeper seeing that it is all the same thing, that
Mm.
there actually is no distinction, there is no actual there are no actual opposites, there are no actual um yeah, like that this is good and this is bad, this is acceptable and this is unacceptable. Like that's all seen through the filter. That's how things are seen and experienced through the filter of the mind. Um because of it's non-dual in nature, but that is not how we as the infinite awareness actually, yeah. I mean, it's like in the unity and oneness challenge, it's only the senses and the mind that see anything that way.
Yeah, and to know that, like to really know that the only reason any of this first of all, even seems like to is because there are senses, and the senses are dual in nature. Like, in order to hear a sound, there needs to be something that's making a sound. You know what I mean? Like that's two. Or to see that plant, there needs to be eyes to perceive that plant.
Mm,
You
right.
know, to know no mind, no thought, there has to be noise going on in the mind to even notice the contrast that there are also many, many moments of no mind, of no sound, of no thought, you know, and to realize that these really aren't opposites. They're the same thing being described just in a different way. You know what I mean? Like maybe your ear is hearing a sound, right? In order to hear that sound, it needs to seem to be separate from the ear. But where is the sound and where is the ear?
Mm,
So then is the sound the ear and what the sound in the ear seem to be in, are those any separate then? They can't be. They're all occupying the same space. So is there really a sound? Is there really an ear? Is there really an indivisible being that both are in? No, because they're all occupying the same space. So, like, then where does your world of opposites
mm.
come from and go at that point? It's all the same space. Like whatever is going on here in this mirror in the capacity of your problem, this is my problem. This is a really big problem. This is a really big decision. This is real big energy. You know what I mean? Like, holy shit. To, yeah, but where's all that coming from? Again, like, where is that? Oh my shit, this is a really big energy. This is my problem. A choice needs to be made. Man, this is like so beyond my capacity. Where is all that coming from? It's coming from the space that is not its polar opposite, that is occupying the exact same space. It is all the one thing.
I
So if
think
this
that's
is the capacity and the momentum of this, then what is also in that exact same space, just unvisible, but same thing, is also equal there to match that or more. That's where the transformation kind of happens, where that vibration kind of changes vibration and that capacity to know that there is actually no opposite.
right. And everything that the mind is perceiving, as compelling as it seems for such a long time, it's actually never true.
It's never true and it's never separate. It can't be.
And that's why it's so powerful to ask the question from Helen's book, Now That You Are Formless, to whenever anything arises, to get to that point that whenever anything arises, to ask the question, how would this affect me if I were formless? Because then the mind's stories,
They have to fall apart. They have
they
to
have to fall apart.
disintegrate.
Yeah.
Because even asking that question, like, where is this coming from? Where is it coming from? Where is it not coming from? You know what I mean? Like, the beingness that we are is not separate to that. It is here. So like just to ask the question over and over again whenever the mind comes up with anything
Mm.
dissolves like all of it. There is no sound, there is no ear outside of formlessness. It's all occupying the same space.
Yeah, the way the mind perceives reality is extremely limited. Um, and yet it's believed so fully that it doesn't even occur to us to question it. Um,
Even small things. Me and my husband were out this morning. um, he went and got a coffee and I only had a little under an hour. So we just brought our chairs outside and it was super quiet outside. And the first day, really, in days where the forest fires aren't really
Yeah, that's
making it
where,
hard to breathe or whatever, but it was
yeah, it's been
actually
like
there was
that
no
here too.
smell of smoke and um so we just sat outside to drink our coffees in that time and we were just listening to the birds and it was like where is that coming from? And like I just noticed because he had like this little app on his phone and he had it on his lap and there were like things coming up and I said what is that? And he goes it's bird sounds, it's recognizing the bird sounds and telling me
Yeah,
what the
I have
birds
that
are,
app. I love
right?
it.
And then I just looked at him and it was like I wonder where it's coming from, meaning the bird sounds, right? Because there were, whatever. And he just, when I said that, it was like, yeah, where is it coming from? Like this is like going even beyond problems. You know what I mean? Of where I have this problem, like where is this problem coming from?
Yeah, I don't even think
Like
about problems
now it's
anymore.
like
Yeah.
it's turning into everything. Like even just listening to
Yeah.
the birds, I wonder where that's coming from. And you would have in the question, it was like from out there. But internally, when that question was asked, it was like, yeah, where is that sound coming from? There's no separation. There was the two
Mhm.
things playing out there.
That's interesting. That reminds me so much of Adyashanti tells this story of one of his he tells stories of there were a couple of massive awakenings that he experienced. And one of them, that was the thing, his background was Zen, so there was a lot of meditation, sitting, and he was just sitting in his meditation space and had just had, I can't remember, it's been a while since I've read about this, but he had just had some kind of major shift. And there was a bird singing, and that was the question that just sort of surfaced. It wasn't coming from the mind, but the question was, who hears this sound? Um, so that's what you're reminding me of. And that's a beautiful question to ask because yeah, it gets to the heart of
Yeah, it
uh,
was like the mind was asking the question just because he had to point his phone or whatever in his right. And it's like, I wonder where that's coming from.
yeah,
But at the exact same time, it was like that reverberation went so much deeper because in the same asking of where it was coming from
yeah,
out here, there was like, where is that coming from? And this realization that it's not coming from anywhere because we are that, I am that, it is this.
exactly.
And then
Yeah.
it was like a double question, but again, not happening in two different moments. It was I could even see that the question that seemed like it was like this and this, so coming from separation, but also it was like from non-separation at the same time. It was like I could almost see like even how that one question felt like it was coming from two different places, but actually the one question was happening at the exact same time that both things were taking place, proving yet again that there is no separation, even in opposites, that they
Mm.
are exactly the same.
Yeah, even form and formlessness, which
Yeah,
seem like as opposite as you can get.
yeah, but
Yeah,
it's not. When it really starts to fall apart, it's not. Those two things wouldn't have even been able to be possible at the same time if that was the case. But there was. There was an asking verbally, where is that coming from? And a knowing at the exact same time that was going on, like, yeah, where is that coming from? Happening at the exact same time. And it was like,
mm,
oh, that bird's not coming from anywhere. Seems like it might be coming from over there, but actually, that's not true.
mm.
And there was a seeing this play out, like, and it seemed like two at the same time, but it actually, that can't be the case because there are no two, there is no time.
Yeah. or distance.
or distance. So it is possible for us to be saying something on one plane and a knowing of something else going on at the exact same time on this plane, and knowing that it is actually happening at the same time in the same moment, not
Hmm.
separate from one another.
I'm trying to remember. You sent me a link this week of one of Helen answering a question in a Q and A, I think. I think it was about the soul.
Yes,
Remember?
yes.
I've been watching a lot of her
I've
videos this
listened to
week.
that. I was listening to it at work. I've listened to it quite a few times actually, and that whole
Yeah.
thing was really interesting.
Can you remind me what do you remember what the question was or what because I've watched so many other that kind of started something for me of going down a rabbit hole, watching more and more of her videos. There was like actually a lot of resistance around that for a
I'm gonna pause
while.
you for a minute. I gotta go blow my
Okay.
nose.
Yep.
You keep talking, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Because I was just gonna um I wanted to see if I could find the link.
We'll start with Elaine.
No, that wasn't it. That was a different one. You sent me a couple, and I really do appreciate that. It was really helpful.
This is how your foot was born. This is what 40 years of shoes did to it. Let me show you which.
Yeah, have you watched a lot of the like the extra classes on helenhamilton.org where it's like broken down by topic, you know?
Yes, I actually have.
Because because I've started going back and watching more of them because there's just like there was a time where I would kind of do that, and then I don't know, there was just so much resistance surfacing that there was like it's clear now there was a real, like we were just talking about, a sort of fear of going deeper into certain topics.
Yep.
But but a lot of that has dissolved, and there's just this like curiosity and yeah, just wanting to go deeper with certain things, especially as yeah, I think the challenges have helped with that a lot because there's something about experiencing that intense resistance, because I think that's another thing that's been a real catalyst for sure. Um, because once that's been experienced multiple times, having this intense resistance come up and being able to stay with it to not actually like run in the opposite direction, but to keep going, basically. I think that and then having a deeper understanding of what the resistance is and why it's showing up, and that allows like a softening,
Hmm.
so yeah, it's yeah, there's just so much there on the website as far as like because they're not all, there's so much available on the YouTube channel, all the songs and things like that, the Q&As. But the classes, I think, have all been part of various things she's done just with the group. So there's just, I think there's a going deeper into like having extended conversations about various topics that
Hmm.
um yeah, that I don't know, there's like I that's one of the things that I realized was like surfacing when I was like getting excited about having a desire surface, because like when I first wrote down my desire list, it was things like, I know these are desires, but I can tell that they're not the deepest desires, or I can tell that they're still coming from a place of feeling like at least some of them were like problems that needed to be solved or something. And there was already starting to see that these problems actually aren't even real anyway. They're already being seen differently or whatever. And
Hmm.
there was a sense that there's like, yeah, that there are deeper desires that are coming from a deeper place, but there was just sort of a fear of looking at them because of that sense of like there was still a belief in I'm not going to get what I want anyway, or I'm not gonna because of this grief story in particular, in this sense of I've already lost everything and I can't get it back, but but now that's yeah, there's a more of a capacity to allow these desires to surface as that starts to be seen more clearly, that things can actually go in a different direction now that that story isn't being believed anymore. It doesn't have to play out again and again like some kind of horrible Groundhog Day scenario. But uh but yeah, it's really, really good. And now I just want to like go through and watch like every video on every topic methodically. They're starting to feel like um again, it's so interesting because there was a story for such a long time of like, why don't I like, because there was sort of an as identification with the resistance. So there was a sense of like, why don't I want this more? Why am I avoiding it? Why am I running away from it? And it felt like it's because I'm not devoted enough. It felt like it's because I failed even at this. Um, like the same scenario had played out over again in my life where I lost everything, like starting with um at 18 years old when I had a profound sense of loss when I could no longer be a part of the church that I grew up in. And there was a very profound feeling of having lost everything because that was my whole world. And there was a feeling of losing every friendship, losing every sense of purpose and meaning, like all of it. And but there was always a sense, like over and over again, there was a sense of I've lost everything. Um, but I need to rebuild somehow. Like there was always a sense of I need to find something else that will make me, I need to replace all of that I lost. And so there'd be like an attempt to rebuild life. And like very consciously, that's what my whole life was about. I didn't see it as again, it's like what Jung said, it's like because it was unconscious, it just the same pattern kept playing out again and again. And that even applied to spiritual awakening, because in the beginning there was a like Because then that's what it was like each time there was a sense of like, okay, now I found what I need to be happy. Um, but then because that grief had never been fully felt, it would it would have to be lost again. It would have to be gone through the process again and again. Um and that happened even with spiritual awakening where it was like, okay, now I found what's actually true. I'm on this path and I'm so devoted and I'm so yeah, I was like even excited about it, about doing various spiritual practices and finding teachers and things like that. And um, but even that was coming from a place of separation ultimately, and it's only when but that was what's the thing is it felt like the grief became more profound. There became more of a sense of like, I really can't get it back. I really can't. So there was this sense of like of having failed and not knowing how to fix it. But again, that just coming from a place of separation. And now that that isn't believed anymore, it's just a curiosity. It's just a curiosity without any kind of story around it. It doesn't feel temporary. It just feels like it just keeps getting, it can only get deeper. Because it isn't coming from a place of separation. It isn't coming from a doer. Um, it isn't even coming from a yeah, it's not coming from any of that. And I guess that makes all the difference, or it does make all the difference. But uh but yeah, there's just a lot of gratitude for um for having a sense of everything that I need is actually it's the opposite of that. It's the opposite of I've lost everything that I need to be happy and I can't get it back. And it's more I have everything that I need and it can't ever be taken away because it's not separate to me, something like that. And that just
Mhm.
keeps deepening. But yeah, it's helpful for the conscious imagining challenge because one of the reasons that felt so horrible was because, and that's what actually allowed this to surface, part of what allowed it to surface, because I would sit down to do the conscious imagining and I would be reading Helen's words and it'd be like such a high vibration. It's just like, everything's amazing. We can have whatever we want. And there was just, and all you have to do is feel good. And it was like, and that's where there was anger. I understand now there was anger, and it's so helpful to see what anger is saying because it's saying I can't get what I want. And that's why. And so then there was just like a curiosity around. It's like, why do I think I can't feel good? Why do I think that's impossible? Why does that feel completely unattainable? Um, and it was partly that sense of like, well, I felt bad for so long that I don't know how to feel good. And it was like, well, but what is that? Like, what is that if everything Helen is saying is true, if everything all of these spiritual teachers are saying is true, um, who feels bad? Like who is it that has to feel bad? It can't be it can't be the infinite self that I am, that I know myself to be. It just led to a, like you were saying about willingness or earlier, like the resistance became super, super intense, but at the same time that was happening, the willingness was also surfacing more and more. And that's an intention that's coming from, not coming from the mind. The resistance is coming from the mind, but there's something deeper that really wants to know, like what is actually true then? What am I? That's the real question. Like, what am I really? If I'm not what I believe myself to be, then this story that this is how it has to be because I don't know how to be any other way. Um, that can't actually be true. That's some very contracted feeling that feels like there's something here saying this is me, and this spaciousness is something separate and alien and threatening, and it wants to annihilate me or something like that. That's what would surface at times, this fear of um the emptiness, because there's that momentum behind the story of I am the separateness. So at some point that shifts, and uh it feels more true. I am the awareness, but for me, it was gradual, it for the longest time, it felt like this separateness is what's real, even when it's interesting how it can happen at the same time, even though it was like, I know that what the non-dual teachers are saying, I know that's what's true, but that's the thing is, these unconscious beliefs are still compelling and still grab our attention, until they're fully seen.
Yeah, yeah. I know when shame and guilt bubbled to the surface, there was like this sense of being shocked, first of all, like, because it was pretty in my face. So, first there was shock, and then there was like defensiveness. Then there was an awful lot of crying. There was like a
Mm.
huge release. Um, and
Did
then
it
there
feel like
was,
that? It was a crying that felt like a release,
oh
not like
yeah, because it was
okay,
like,
yeah,
how could I
that's
have
good.
not ever known that this was here?
Mm,
And then there was
yeah.
all this sadness that came with it, like a lot of sadness.
Mm,
And I just started crying, and then more, you know, images, I guess you can say them, were popping to the surface of time zones and frames and ages, and then it was like, what is all this?
mm.
What is all this? And then it just came, that, well, that's when it came. What game and shame and guilt were telling me. They were telling me that there was a belief inside of myself that, um, I'm not a good person. I'm a
Mm,
fraud. I'm a fake.
mm.
I'm a sneaky and liar, and that whenever anybody has anything to do with me, they always get hurt. And
Oh wow, yeah.
like, I didn't know any of that was under there. Like, it was like, what?
Yeah.
And it was like, but with the images, popping up like little bubbles themselves, it was like there was no way to deny that that's actually how I feel. And then there was seeing, like, at times felt like a fraud, even have had sessions with Helen and with you
Yeah,
about
I
it.
remember you talked
I
about that.
felt like a lot of the time I've also all thought to myself, and like, that I am not a good person, that
Yeah.
people have been hurt around me, like son, ex-husband,
Mm.
you know, cats, this thing, that thing. I've done this, I've done that. I lied in this way, or in this big way, or in this small way, or I've hid this and I hid this, and this was the reason why I hid this, but there was a repercussion to that, and it went like all the way back from the earliest memory I ever had to like just pockets of everywhere. And there was just this realization of I never knew I thought like I that I wasn't a good person.
Mm.
I knew the fraud thing, but really, I'm not a good person. Like I've done lots of good things, but at the very same time, there was this not good person living under there that I never seen before or acknowledged
Yeah.
before
Yeah. Well, it's
or
too
stuffed
painful.
down because there were some
Right.
things that would bubble up sometimes, and it was like, no, 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 no.
It's too
Right, and push
painful for
that back
separate
down.
self.
Like I don't want
Yeah.
to look at that. That's like I don't need to look at that. But I didn't
Yeah.
know it was shame and guilt. I had no idea about that. And nor did
Yeah.
I think I was a sneaky liar because also, that popped up and it was like the mind could make all the excuses for what that little pop up was, good or bad or whatever it was, right? The story around why, whatever. And that created like this shame and guilt to surface. And I don't know, it just, I had no idea. I really I really, really didn't have any idea that all of
Yeah.
that was just hiding underneath this shame and guilt. And wow, it was kind of profound actually and tiring, to tell you the truth, to see all that. But now it's seen.
Yeah. It is auspicious when the deeper layers surface like this because, it's sort of like, I think of it sort of like an iceberg. And, as we continue, it's like it surfaces, like part of it surfaces and it's seen, but then it might go back down under the water, go back down into the unconscious, but then more surfaces and then more surfaces. Um, and at some point, it's like if you think of our awareness as being like the sun, at some point enough of it is surfacing, it's above the water, it's become conscious, and like the rays of the sun can hit it and dissolve it. And it's only when more of it surfaces, but for a time it can be like that where it's like a little bit comes up and then it goes back down and it comes back up, and that's why the seeing can keep deepening, it can keep deepening because um it's like the capacity to see it deepens, as we disidentify from this sense of being a separate self. Like what like the thing about like what you're describing, like the reason that couldn't have surfaced when there was still a deep identification with being a separate self is it's like that it's unbearable when you feel like that, when you feel like it's true, when it surfaces, like the deeper layers can surface when there's this greater capacity to see that it's not, that it can't be true,
Mhm.
because there's not a when once it's seen that there's not a doer, um and something like this Transcending the Mind book and course is so helpful because it's seen like there's a greater understanding of what's even happening here, like what, like it's not a failure, it's not a setback, it's not backsliding, it's not falling back into illusion, it's not any of that. it's it's just a deepening capacity to see these deeper layers so that they can dissolve and never to return. So that's
Mhm.
a totally different experience than trying to carry this heavy burden of negative emotion and self-judgment when it still feels very true, then
Mhm.
it can feel completely unbearable, and so it can still feel it can still feel um very emotional and very sad and all of but when it's seen that that's just things that are surfacing and not things that are actually true or things that are actually going to have to be carried for forever, because like that's how it can feel when these things start. It's why we push them away in the first place, or why we repress them in the first place, is it's literally the attention turning away from it. The desire is there to not look at it, because it feels too painful, or it feels um, too threatening to our self-image, things like that, or it just feels or it brings up all these other emotions. There's a teacher, I think her name is Jan Fraser. She's also in some of Dan's films. And I remember her saying something that really stayed with me. She was like, it was something like, notice the looking away, so for a time there's still going to be that the momentum behind that habit of looking away, but can you look at the looking away? And it's sort of just another way of saying, like, can you remain as the self, even in that, even in the thick. And that's another thing, you used that expression of in the thick of it, even when you're in the thick of it. Can you notice the looking away? Because that looking away, like, there's an energy behind it. That's what the entire unconscious exists, because of that desire to look away. But once it's seen, that greater capacity, like we were talking about earlier, um that there's something here actually seeing that. And like, even so, in other words, even if you can't look at what doesn't want to be seen, can you see the looking away from it? And that deepens the capacity to be with all of it. But yeah, that's why it is so helpful to have a teacher, have other people that are on the path that can explain what's happening, because to the mind it feels like a non-beautiful destruction. It feels like a total um chaotic kind of, um yeah, losing of everything, basically losing of everything you thought was true. And it's like Helen has described before, the thing with the heavier energies, the mind has this tendency to, like, you're here and you're like, oh, I feel all this guilt, I'm having all this stuff surfacing, and then it's like, uh yeah, there's no way out of this. It's just going to keep getting, and it's just like it keeps going down. And that's why it's so helpful when you have the tools that allow you to, um to not go down that rabbit hole of having negative emotion heaped upon negative emotion. Because
Mhm.
it sounds like you experienced a shift where you saw this surface, but
Yeah, I think it's still all working itself out.
yes, yeah,
That was like 2 days ago. Some other things have come up since then.
yeah.
And but oh yes, most definitely. It showed me a lot about a lot of things, including
For you to
time.
even be able to talk about it in this way, it's clear that it's, it's not, you're not like fully contracted and identified with it. Because then it's like,
No,
yeah,
no, I'm more grateful that I actually got to see it in its
yeah,
totality. So I also got to see how it's playing out. Um, and again, the fact that once it's seen, you can't unsee something. It's not
right.
possible. So, the next time, and there will be a next time. There's always a next time. The next time, something bubbles to the surface, um, that will more than likely come slamming to the foreground of that experience because it's been seen that right now a pattern is playing out and it's going to either go this way or it's going to go this way. And at this Y point, either way is fine. But if it's the old pattern and behavior, that's fine. Doesn't need to be a story about it, but it has been seen now. So is that the way we're going with this, or are we going this way? Like, if both ways is fine, but
Well, just a reminder that you can always reach out if that feels, if that feels like something that you
I
want to
mean,
do.
we all do things, we all do things, and we're going to go into the liar aspect. We all do things, right? Consciously, unconsciously. Sometimes you do something, and right before you do it, there feels like there is a choice. Like you could either do this, and then you'd have to lie about it, or do this and not have to lie about it, right? But sometimes in our lives, we've picked both paths, big or small. And no matter the lying, it feels not good, right?
Mm,
It just never does. Hence that old saying, the truth will set you free.
mm,
But when you see a pattern like that, you know, even if it's just small, the next time that shows up in some sort of way, the foreground of your awareness is going to really kick in because now you're aware of this pattern and you're aware that it's going to go one of two ways. And even though you're not picking that way, if you can really stay self centered with what you learned from the entangling of this experience and just be really self centered there, then the quality of what direction is going to be very different.
it has to be different when the stories are seen to not be true
And even if
because
it goes in the not direct the direction of, let's say, the white lie, right? Even if it still goes in that direction, there was a consciousness to that either way. And to be able to stay in that direction before coming back here is not going to be very long because this is going to start being very uncomfortable. So
mm,
I lied about that, even though it wasn't very small. I'm noticing that I feel guilty and shame when I look at that person, right? So the next time that comes up, it's going to be more and less able to go into the direction of the white lie for whatever reason that might be, right? It's not going to feel good. It's going to feel less and less and less and less, even if it was just something small, you know, because it's been seen. That pattern has been seen. It's being seen how it's being perpetuated now, and there's no judgment that has been there for a
Yeah.
long time. You know what I mean?
And the causality is the opposite of what the mind believes. It's not that you feel guilty because of the action that you took.
No,
This action arose because of the whatever
that's right.
guilt is still believed in.
It's still
And
believed
so
in.
that so you're right, there's no other place for it to go, but like when you're at this point where what you really want is to see and is to, even that feeling bad. Like one of the things that I noticed with when was having so much intense resistance and all kinds of other really unpleasant stuff, like emotions and stuff surface from starting the conscious imagining challenge and trying to write down my desires and stuff. I would be feeling so miserable, so completely miserable, and I would just be like, and I would be right. I could show you pages in my journal where it's just like all like I don't usually write like this, but all caps scrawled across the whole page. Like I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, fuck everything. Like it was just like so intense. But at one point it was just like, and there was just a sense of like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. I'm so confused. I can't have it anyway. And there was just this, I would find myself saying like, I just want to feel good. I just want to feel good. I just want to feel good. I'm so, so tired of feeling this way. And little did I understand at that time the power in that, because that really is the root of all of these desires, is just to feel better. Like it's never about, when I've even heard Helen talk about this, like when you think you want more money, you think you want somebody to love you, whatever it is, it really is about feeling better, just wanting to feel better, just not wanting to feel miserable. And the thing is, that feels like to the mind, like, well, that's not very spiritual, or that's not very advanced, or that's not a very high level thing to want, but actually it's totally aligned with our true nature. Our true nature doesn't feel miserable about anything. It feels totally accepting of everything. And that desire surfacing, it really is, it has to go in that direction at that point. Like once I said that out loud and really felt that desire, things actually did start to shift, um because it's like Helen's image again of being in the bathtub, and it feels nice and warm at first, and it's pleasant and it's soothing. That's how it is to be a separate person. Like we never would feel like a separate person if there wasn't something that wanted to, if our real self didn't on one level want that to manifest and play out, and to see what that's like. It's not like it's something that's happening to us against our will. It's not like we we did something wrong in another realm and got sent to Earth to be punished and to
Hmm.
feel separate. Like it's on a soul level that wanted to be experienced. And it's only when that was seen and felt really clearly of like, yeah, I really don't, because there was like something that was still holding on to that for a long time, and it like seemed to drag this out. It was like because there was like still such a fear of what it meant to not be separate, that something still kept wanting to contract and wanting to contract. But at some point, like the seeming suffering becomes so acute that it's just something opens up and is like, yeah, screw this. I don't care what it means. I don't care if it means I die. I don't care if it means that I dissolve into this nothingness and that's it. And everything that feels like me is gone forever. Because that's what I really felt it must mean um to have the ego dissolve. I didn't that it just it I mean, and that was even something that yeah, it just that hung on for a really, really long time. That sense of like, I want this, I want to wake up, but there was something that was like, I really don't want to wake up.
Yeah.
Um, and that does like, that keeps it from manifesting because we are the infinite self. If we really don't want something to happen, if we really do want something to happen, that intention, um, it's that's powerful. It's But that's what became more and more clear. It just became more and more clear of like, yeah, I don't, whatever it means to for the ego to dissolve, whatever it means, it still feels scary, but it feels way worse at this point. So it's interesting because like that's not what the mind thinks it's going to be. Like that doesn't feel spiritual. That doesn't feel, it feels really messy. It feels really chaotic. It's not this like it's just like sitting in peace and being like, "Oh,
No.
it turns out I really do want the ego to dissolve after all. I really do want to know my true nature." Like it was like kicking and screaming and wretched misery and acute intense suffering. And at some point just like screaming that out into the universe of, I'm done with this. I'm done with this. Like I don't want to feel bad anymore. I don't want to feel
Yeah.
bad anymore. Um and it was only in that this conceptual sense of, well, I'm the infinite self and I don't have any problems, that started to really deepen. It's like, yeah, no, if I'm feeling bad like this, that can't last. Like that can't be and that was the story for a really long time of it. I just kept finding myself back in the same place. It felt like hell, it felt like this never gets better. This never gets better. But at some point it just started, something opened up to the possibility, like maybe that's not true. And at one point I was feeling that just as intensely as ever. And instead of feeling again more resistance and going deeper, deeper down into that abyss, something was like open enough to question it. And of course, that's where the real power is, in questioning these beliefs. And it just happened spontaneously where it was something like a statement process that happened spontaneously. There's this really, really low vibration of nothing ever gets better. I always end up in the same place of feeling absolutely wretched and terrible and despairing and despondent. Nothing ever changes. Everything always gets worse. And in the midst of that, there was a spontaneous, um, is that true? Is that true? And there was the space for like a higher vibration statement, which felt true and felt better, which was, everything changes. Everything actually does change. So whatever this story is that's playing out, it actually can't be the ultimate truth that it feels like it is. And that is the thing that it didn't feel super significant at the time. There was still a lot of negative feelings hanging out, still hanging around in the atmosphere, but there was a real opening there, and I realized I could always return to that it would always feel, it was undeniable. It could never um not feel truer than everything always. As true as that felt, and it was, by the way, the reason it felt so true is because it kept being experienced. So it was like the mind couldn't really question it because it was like, yeah, it's true because it keeps happening. Nothing ever gets better. I keep living the same experience over and over
Mhm.
again. Um, I keep returning to these lower and lower energies, and there's nothing I can do to get out of them. But it's precisely because that's believed that it keeps recurring, and as soon as it's questioned. So I mean, it didn't. So it did. I did feel the shift even in that moment, but what I didn't see is how it would it was dissolving all of the resistance I had around contemplation itself, because the more this is being experienced, the more these shifts in energy and vibration are being experienced, the more it's seen that, like, yeah, this actually is, like, Helen is giving you a map, like, this is the way out of suffering. If you can question these stories, that really is enough. It doesn't have to be um, lifetimes of spiritual practice and meditation and going to the mountaintop and renouncing all worldly things. Like, that actually is what the mind says has to be, that it has to be difficult, that it has to require a huge amount of, that's all it knows, that everything has to be hard and require this enormous amount of effort. But that's coming from a doer. That's coming from the belief in a doer, the belief in a seeker. And there really, the intention really is enough. The intention to see the truth, the intention to live as that. And then the willingness to question, the willingness to see, like we've been talking about, to just see it, to allow it to come fully into awareness without any pushing against it or running away from it. And the more it becomes exponential. It's like Helen says in one of the Transcending the Mind classes, like, the way the mind sees that everything requires effort, it also believes everything has to be like this sort of plodding forward, and it's got to be a hard slog. It's got to be like that forever. It's because it doesn't see the possibility of anything else. It only sees what's been experienced in the past, and that is what it's like as a separate self.
Hmm.
Um, but or as a perceived separate self. But what really happens with something like the Transcending the Mind book, and the willingness to see those, just a handful of stories that are actually being believed by the mind, um, that at first it feels like it does feel like it's just going to take so much work and so much time, because that's how it feels in the beginning. It's like I've really got my work cut out for me. I'm believing all kinds of stuff that's not true, and I can see that clearly for the first time, and it feels like it's going to take lifetimes for all of this to dissolve. But again, that willingness to be like, well, I guess we'll just see what, like, I'm not willing to have the certainty of the mind that that's the case. And Yeah, it actually is. It turns out to be exponential. It turns out to be, um, it's like
Like
there's that thing.
unraveling this quilt, this,
Yes,
like this,
exactly. Yeah.
like this weaved quilt, but that seems like really elaborate and there's a
Yes.
lot to it. But if you just tug on
Right. Yeah.
just the one, like all of the right one is gonna just, it's all gonna
Yeah,
start
for sure.
unraveling.
Yeah,
Like
that's
that's why
actually,
it's not. It's like the mind says, "Oh, there's so much here. I can see
yeah,
it." Like,
exactly.
wow,
That's
it's
how it
gonna take
appears to
like
the
this
mind.
lifetime and next lifetime. I got lifetimes of stuff that I've even seen. Like, holy shit, it's never gonna end,
Yeah.
right? But realistically, once you've tugged on, a couple of those, you realize that all of that's connected to just the one
Yeah.
string, and that's why it can just, you have no idea how fastly something can dissolve and take like 10 other things with it because they're all linked together,
Exactly.
or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, there's just the one thread.
That is exactly what is being demonstrated in the story of the Gordian knot. It comes from ancient Greece. It's that there was a king or something who had I think that's where the Gordian comes from. I don't it might have been Gordius or something like that. But um he had this knot that was impossible to unravel, and he invited like anybody can come and try to unravel this knot, and various masters of various disciplines came to try to unravel this knot. Nobody could do it. And I think it was Alexander the Great who came and uh, took his sword and just like cut through the knot and was like, oh, there we go. You never said I couldn't do it all in one fell swoop, you know?
It's true.
You don't,
Or like that saying when actually my daughter said it, and when she said it, it made me think actually. We were talking about something of the past, and we made a joke about something, and she goes, "Oh yeah," and then we started talking about that memory, and then she looked at me and she goes, "Well," she goes, "it's time to stick this back in the closet." She goes, "That was a nice walk down memory lane, but before we get too deep in that, I got to put that back in the closet before everything else falls out." Right?
mm,
And when she said that, something really dawned on me, and it was like, yeah, that's like that one string. It's no
yeah,
different than having your closet stuffed jam packed full of things. You gotta hold one thing in as you slam the door really quick just because it's so overpacked. But
yeah,
if you just open up the door and you just take out one thing from that puzzle, other stuff is falling out that closet. You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
it's had enough. It needs some room to
Well,
breathe, and it
yeah.
is
I
the
mean,
space. And
yeah, I think that's why it is so powerful and transformative. Um,
it's
once it
not going to
is
overtake you either. Like when stuff starts falling out the closet, it's just falling into a much larger room
right,
with
no,
a
that I
much.
think that's why, yeah, that's why it is so key once we come to that place in our seeing where, and I remember when this started penetrating, I'd hear I remember hearing Helen say it in a satsang, and it truly had not really penetrated in that way. There was still yeah, even though I'd had everything spectacularly fall apart, there was still a sense of being a seeker. It was just a seeker who had failed instead of a seeker who was still seeking. Um, but yeah, but it's it changes everything once you see that you are already that which you are seeking. That's why it's not what the mind perceives it to be. It's not this endless extremely difficult journey because you're not a person on a journey anyway. You've already arrived. In fact, you never left. And it's just a process of watching this unfold. And that is a completely different orientation. And it allows everything to move in a different direction when that's
Yeah,
seen clearly. Because it's like, okay, I can't actually fail at this because it's the desire for this to unfold, for the illusion to dissolve, for the ego to dissolve. Like it's not a doing that's making this happen. So there's not any way that it can fail. It's just something that's happening already, and I'm just learning to see that more clearly. But I also see at the same time, there's something that's seeing it more clearly. There's something that never was obscured, like has always seen it clearly and could never not see it clearly. And those things are happening at the same time. What's not happening is that there's a person on a journey making anything happen. Um, that's that's always just been something that was believed until it didn't want to be believed anymore.
yeah. It's like the light of our awareness, the awareness that we all are the high beings, just
Mm.
get much brighter, and it's just never been not there.
Yeah.
It's just that the light of our awareness is shining through more strongly and illuminating everything that was already and always
Yeah.
there as well.
Yeah. And there's just this increasing desire um to live as that in the seeming world of form, to have whatever, there's can be a seeing I'm not this body mind, um while at the same time seeing that the body mind is being upgraded, it is being transformed as the illusions are dissolving, or the belief in the illusions are dissolving. Illusions are actually not don't exist anyway, technically, but yeah, I don't know. At some point language starts to break down, but
It does.
the important thing is that there is just a clearer seeing of what has all, like you're saying, what has always already been true. There was never any separation. There is no, there is no separate being that needs to be liberated. It's not our separate self that wakes up to the truth. It is more like the separate self, or the belief in the separate self dissolves, and then the truth that was always there, can actually be um, expressed in a pure way, even in this world of seeming separation. And that just continues to deepen. Anyway, I have to go,
I
but
do too.
yeah, but it's as always, it's been a delight to be with you today.
I'll see you later on, probably. Yes, anyway, in another.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
I'll be there. And yeah, I've been really looking forward to it. I'm assuming she's doing self-inquiry today, which
I
is
think so. Which is,
yeah.
yes.
Exactly. I know I've been feeling the same way. It's like
It
yeah,
is
it
my
just
favorite method.
let me ask this. I'm curious, like, was there a resistance around it in the beginning for you? Did it always kind of feel, I think there's some things that did various, it depends on the person, like how much resistance
Self-inquiry
there
was
is.
confusion. There was a little bit confusion around it, but it was already happening by itself.
Yeah, I thought you mentioned
And
that.
yeah, it did. It was happening. Then I, got involved with Helen's group and realized, oh, what's been happening actually is self-inquiry. Um, it just, for me, self-inquiry just started unfolding. And then when I started getting into the official practice of self-inquiry,
Mm,
carving out time and questions and whatever, not spontaneous like it had been. Um, at first, it was like working out the question, like what's the right question or how to, the approach of the question, because it was just natural on its own, which is very different than sitting it down with intention, right? So there was a little bit of confusion, but the more and more I got more involved with Helen's teachings, and when it was intentionally practiced, it actually amplified the automatic practice that was already going
yeah,
on in the
yeah.
background, and making that even somehow more deeper.
Mm.
Um, so
Is there a
self
particular
inquiry was my favorite.
so after learning like the formal practice, when it would just arise, would it be in the form of an actual question? Or is there a particular question that feels most alive to you, or
Yeah, it sometimes it was in a question, or sometimes I would get an image and then I would question the image, and then it would just start snowballing on its own from there. Um, No, I don't have a particular question. Sometimes it's just looking at a leaf on a tree and see that I can relate to that leaf on the tree blowing in the wind. Like I wish that I could blow around like that. And it was like, well, what does that even mean? You
Mm,
know, like why do I feel like I'm blowing around like that? Or why do I want to blow around like that?
mm,
And as my awareness deepened, it's like, where is that blowing around like that? What
mm.
is that? You know, or like when shame and guilt bubbled to the surface, right? I was shocked. It was like a what? No, what? You know? And then it was like, where did that come from?
Yeah,
That
there's
was
an
the
active
question
curiosity.
that just bubbled to the, it's like, where did that come from? Well, where else could it have come from? It's
Mm,
formlessness. And it just takes on this whole life of its own. And now with practice, like I can sit down and I have all kinds of questions that I'll actually bubble to their surface all the time. And, you know, maybe I'm doing something. So like, so now I just have a book where I start writing them all down. You know,
yeah.
I've got this whole list of questions that have kind of bubbled to the surface or came to the surface maybe in contemplation or in another practice that
Mm,
just, and it's like, sometimes I'll just sit down with that book and I'll just haul it out and I'll just look at a question. I'll like read through the list or whatever, and something will just stick out. And then I'll just ask whatever came up then. And that's actually kind of a fun way to do it, you know? Um, it's like kind of, they all have their own flavor kind of question, right?
mm,
And what flavors of ice cream am I choosing today? What, you know, it's like we're going into the closet with all these unmatching pair of socks. Which two am I going to put together, or which one am I going to, you know, it's kind
mm,
of it kind of makes it fun that way.
mm.
Um, but it's all over the place for me. Like it's always it's it's alive. Self-inquiry
Mm.
is it's alive. It has its own current, its own stream. And
Yeah,
I don't know, there's just you never know where it's going to take you. And
that's
the
true.
exploration of it is fun and can be very spontaneous, and it's so direct. Like
Exactly. It's so direct.
it's so direct to ask whether something is true or to even wonder where something has come from.
Yeah, what is it really?
What is it really? You know,
And what am
even
I really?
like the question this morning, just sitting outside with my husband having a coffee and we're listening to the birds and noticing he's recording them, and then the question go, wonder where that is.
Mm,
And it echoes back. Like there's like I can almost see it. Like even as I say it now, there's like this, I wonder where that's from. And at the same time, there's like, yeah, I wonder where that's from.
mm,
You know, and it's like, what does that even mean? Ah,
mm.
it's me. It's for me. Like there's no, and then there's like this whole thing that unfolds all by itself. And it might be a couple of seconds, but that couple of seconds can be so profound, or it could be a couple of minutes or even 10 minutes in an official practice, but it's just so direct and there's no wiggle room.
Yeah,
When something is asked authentically or something just reverberates out and it hits here, you know, with such a depth, it's like
beautiful. Yeah.
that only really happens with self-inquiry. It's like the question is alive, like
Mm,
self-inquiry, it's alive. It's It's a force. It's a force of
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah, it's not
It's a
coming from the
force into
mind.
itself. It's a force into itself. It
Mm,
just, there's a power to self-inquiry, a curiosity to it too. Like you really do want to know.
yeah.
Just like a kid really wants to know, like become this kid, but in a different way. If yeah, I really want to know where does that come from? And suddenly where did that come from out there? It doesn't matter. It's like the reverberation of that in here was like, yeah, just kind of takes over. That just even gets forgotten. And then you realize, oh, it was about the sound of the bird over there. You know, it's kind of cool. I don't know, like a form of daydreaming almost. It's pleasant.
Mm. Yeah. It's yeah, it's
But it
coming
can
from a
happen
different,
like it can happen like in a couple of seconds. It's
yeah.
kind of
Well,
cool.
um, yeah, well, I'm excited about class today too. I think it's
Mhm.
yeah, it's it's already been really good. I noticed that my contemplation has been richer since the contemplation class
Oh
last
yes, most
week. So
definitely. That's
yeah,
just yummy.
yeah, yeah,
I don't know what happened with that one, but I look forward to getting contemplation every day just because
yeah,
of the effect that it seems to have. It's really lovely.
yeah. It's easy to fall in love with that, isn't it?
It is. And I wasn't there before, but it sure is now.
Yeah.
It's like I
Um,
just want to sit down and ask the question. You know what I mean? It's like, what's my question right now? Because I know as soon as I say it or if I write it, like, and it's not even, it's instant. Like there's an instant recognition of self instantly. And then just like a marinating in that. And it's every time that question's asked, and it's not even about the answers anymore. It's just something reverberates from asking that question. And I've even noticed, like in my journal, like I had to stop writing out when I asked the question because it's too many times. It's almost like I'll ask a question and some answer will come in some form. And then I ask the question again because that has like a vibration to it. There's like this instant self-recognition. And then the answers just become what the question used to be. It's just before the question would be more like how do I want to say that? The question was less important than the answers. You know, like I wanted to know the answer to the question, but what are all the answers that are going to come? Whereas
mm,
now it's
now
like
it's shifted.
it's just the question itself. I could care less about any of the answers. It's in the question. It really is in the question.
Yeah.
You know, being with that question fully and
Yeah.
totally, that just even takes away all of the answers. It sometimes it's even hard to even find an answer anymore. I can see something is searching for an answer, but there's no answer to be found anymore.
I think
And it
Helen said
feels
something.
yummy to be
Yeah.
there.
I think Helen said something that really uh I loved in the class on contemplation that it's possible to like live as the question. You can live as this question. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's not and it's that's the opposite of what the mind the way the mind wants to know things and come to some kind of definitive stopping
yeah,
point. And yeah, that loosens its grip and there is that deeper and deeper desire to just live as this question.
contemplation is somehow, some way, has morphed into meditation.
Yeah.
I don't know how they've entangled themselves, but and they're not. They're two different practices done,
Well, they
different
are
way.
all the same
But
practice in the same way,
now it
ultimately.
just feels like a really yummy meditation.
Yeah.
Like even if I wanted to sit down and do meditation, like if I had a choice, self-quiet meditation, or contemplation, it would be like contemplation, meditation. Oh, let's go to contemplation. You know what I mean? Just nothing wrong with meditation. It's just somehow become
Yeah, there's
more
always
so.
some
This like
practices feel more
right
alive.
now, it just feels more delicious and yummy, and it's
Well,
like an
that's why there's
instant.
the different practices. They really are all the same
Hmm.
thing. But there are, I mean, we are these individual expressions in that sense of yeah, some things will feel more alive than other things.
And they
You know,
switch around sometimes.
oh, for sure.
Like
Yeah.
before, it used to be meditation and less contemplation. Now
Yeah,
contemplation has taken the foreground, become this yummy, delicious kind of event and activity, and
yeah,
that's very, very relevant, and meditation not so much at the moment. It's noisy, and it's not that it's not important. It still happens. It's not that any of that is a problem because it's
right,
not. It's
right.
just they seem to kind of swap out here and
Yeah.
there and everywhere. It's like all of a sudden it's this and this and not so much this, and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
it's that, and
And what there becomes more and more of a seeing and of a sense that it is unfolding
yeah,
in the best possible way. Once there's a point that isn't questioned anymore, and that's where there can just be a relaxation around all of it. Just to
it
let
can
it
feel
flow.
playful instead of so serious. There's
Oh
like a
God,
playful to
yeah.
it. Like, oh,
It's
today
the
it's going to be
mind that's
this and that.
serious. So freaking serious. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not our true nature, it turns out. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that seriousness it comes from a sense of a doer. I need to get this right, but that turns out to not be what's actually happening. And there is such a lightness around that. It's one of the things that low key just started having a deeper and deeper impact, and that's why it became so much to the forefront with the conscious imagining specifically, because like the way Helen is so playful and so willing to laugh, smile, you know, um, make jokes, like it kind of uh the mind's idea of what spirituality even is, what any of this really is, it starts to break down. And then it's gotten to a point now when I would read this was even just a few days ago that she reiterated this, that your only job is to feel good. If you feel good, then what you desire will come to you. If you feel bad, you're closing yourself off from it. And instead of feeling any kind of freaking out, like, but I don't know how to feel good, I only know how to feel bad, there was a sense of like total lightness, just like, what a relief. What a
Yeah,
relief that this lightness is what we really are. And that hyper seriousness was all coming from a belief in of being a separate person that has to do and has to strive and has to prove their worth and all of that. Such a heavy energy, but it does
yeah,
dissipate and it's
it
beautiful.
really does. You're right.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you
Okay,
again,
Ellie.
Tanya. It's uh it's always a joy, and yeah, we'll talk again soon.
Okay, have
And
a great
yeah, if you
evening.
want to reach out at any point during the week, I'm around. So,
Okie dokie.
all
Same
right. Thanks
here.
again. Love
Bye.
ya. Bye.
Love you too.